we had planned a whole show around this transportation ban, the rideshare app ban, I should say, to be more specific. Minister Dryva was scheduled to be our guest tonight. He is the Minister of Transport, and he unfortunately had to cancel about 2 hours ago because he was called into an urgent meeting, presumably around one of the things that's going on, because we know a lot is going on in transport this week. But fortunately, our guest this evening is somebody that I'm very pleased to introduce to our Taking Stock viewers. His name is David. Hi, David.
Hi, Kalila. And hi,
David Lee. Forgot to say your last name. David, you're in New Jersey tonight. How is it over there?
That's correct. It's actually very nice weather now.
So some of you who follow us on other platforms, if you're on IG, on TikTok, you would have seen that we've been working with Dryva for a few months now, since the start of the year, actually. But for those who are new to Dryva, David, can you just tell our viewers what your platform is all about?
Sure. So a little history about Dryva. Our first investors in the company actually owned Apollo Taxi, and they wanted an app for Apollo. And when I became involved, we started the first version of the app, which we've been developing since 2020, actually. But at the heights of the pandemic, people weren't taking taxis. Everybody was staying home, working from home, but a lot of delivery service was required. So grocery delivery and food delivery. We actually got into, got operational as a courier business during the pandemic and grew from there. So although Dryva is positioning to be a passenger service business, now we actually have been operational as a courier for commercial logistics, on-demand delivery, and for a brief point, we were testing car rental as a part of our model. Now, we have launched the app to a small group of people. We were actually in a friends and family test phase, not quite ready to commercialize it for one main reason. We didn't think we could compete with InDrive and Uber because we didn't have that marketing capacity to launch publicly the way they did. So we kind of been operating in the background, refining our model, and the biggest difference that our business has compared to those is that we actually own our cars. Our vehicles that are in the fleet are owned by the company and registered and licensed as public passenger vehicles by the company, and the drivers who work for the company are all employees that are on a payroll. So they are also licensed with the requisite PPV license, and we're building out a platform of a regulated ride-sharing, ride-hailing business, I should say.
But as of now, your focus has been more on the courier side. You just had the intention to really commercialize the ride-hailing part, ride-sharing part.
Right. So fortunately for us, we've been able to build our business and generate revenue from the demand on the courier side. Again, we found a niche in the market. We've been able to, attract customers who like our platform. We're a completely digital business, paperless, cashless. There's no physical document that you have to sign. Everything you book online and you pay online. Everything is done that way. And we operate 7 days a week for personal and business courier needs on demand. We actually are also, believe it or not, launching passenger service first in the Bahamas. So we bought 6 electric vehicles, which have been landed in Nassau, already branded, and we were going to start there because it's a much smaller market to attack. We weren't actually going to publicize the passenger service in Jamaica until after we launched there successfully. But
and then this ban just came and kind of mashed up your plans anyway.
So I don't know if it has mashed up my plans or actually created a better opportunity for us to reach an audience that we wouldn't normally have been able to reach at this time. So in the US, when Uber started, they started as a black car service primarily aimed at executive transportation. It was a limo service effectively. And then they grew their market share, eventually going down market to more standard vehicles. We were taking the same approach and have been servicing executives and professionals for the last year. We use, I would say premium, not necessarily luxury, but we use premium vehicles, Land Rover. We recently got a Mercedes-Benz, which is in the process of being registered as a public passenger vehicle. We do a lot of airport transfers, but again, we've kind of built it on a friends and family basis where, people that we know that we're not spending marketing dollars to attract. They've been using us, and quite frankly, I think we've been building a good reputation in that market. But from a larger perspective, we were going to, hold off on Jamaica until we believe we got it right with our test market in Nassau, which is very small and easier to control. So again, the ban has come fortuitously, I think, to give us a voice, and I'm happy to be a spokesperson for the group because there are a few of us. I belong to a few WhatsApp groups as well with people who have been building this type of business for a while.
So this ban obviously wouldn't affect the courier side of your business, which is the bulk of your business right now, but it does affect the what do you call it, ride sharing portion or ride hailing. Which one is it, ride hailing or ride sharing?
So ride share, the term ride share, is used, I guess interchangeably, but it more represents what Uber is, where private individuals use their private motor vehicles and carry passengers, being connected through the technology. That is the medium by which they get the service delivered. But ride hailing now doesn't necessarily involve private individuals. I would say we're ride hailing because really you're using the technology to hail a cab. Normally
Right.
you would either pick up the phone and call, let's say, Apollo, and you have at least a dozen phone numbers that you could call one after the other if the line was busy, and then you'd wait on a dispatcher to tell you whether or not there was a vehicle that's available. Now with this, the advent of technology and what we've built, obviously you cut out the middle person and you can use your device and see for yourself if there's anything available and be able to know the price and the time and everything, and then just hail a cab is effectively what is happening. So it affects that side of the business because the minister was very clear. And I am I'm a strong believer in following the rules and regulations that are set out. So we paused any activity on the app according to the minister's instructions, but have immediately followed up with the Transport Authority to ensure that when the ban is lifted, we are on the list of entities that are promoted as being regulated and compliant.
So I'm a bit confused. So if you're ride hailing and not ride sharing, I thought it only affected the ride sharing.
No, so so again, I think the minister, along with most people, just interchange the two things and call it the same. But let's say by distinction with InDrive, we know for sure is not based in Jamaica. 2, does not have any vehicles that they control, and 3, the drivers are people that can just sign up with just a picture and a picture of themselves and a picture of the driver's license. No further background checks. Now, there are a lot of things that can happen, as we've seen, unfortunate things that have happened because you have no control over the quality and service delivery. We've taken the complete opposite approach where we have control from start to finish, from the user experience to the driver experience to the overall experience. And so, we definitely stand apart from the rest, but because we use technology to deliver a service, we are grouped together, and as such, we are, doing as the minister said and pausing our operation until they are satisfied that we have met all of their requirements.
Is that a fair grouping though? Because I can't see, based on what you've described, you sound more like an on-time taxi or Apollo that you said that you built the app for, helped to build the app for, as opposed to Uber, Lyft, InDrive. So is it fair to lump you all together? Meanwhile, Apollo, On Time, and so on get to continue operating?
I might plead the fifth on that one in case the minister is watching, but I understand why some action needed to be taken. Something needed to be done because, one, as I said, I've been ready with my app for about a year, but because of InDrive and Uber, who are far larger than myself and could easily attract customers, I had to hold off on my launch because people wouldn't know about us, and it's hard to break into a Jamaican market, especially with something new. But we saw where that was being abused, the Uber and the InDrive, and there were others as well, but those are the two primary ones. And
abused how?
Meaning they could operate without being sanctioned. They're virtual. They have no representative in Jamaica. There's nobody to go lock up. They couldn't do anything to anybody. And unless you're going to file an international lawsuit to shut them down here, the only other thing you could do is give a local instruction that needed to be followed, and anybody who is going against that instruction, again, like when we had curfews, you were instructed to stay home. You just had to follow the rule. So something had to be done to let the other players know that it's not business as usual. Something's going to change, and we're going to be in control of that change, not you. So the good thing is, immediately after the ban, myself, 876 on the go, Intermetro, Red Plate, 876 get, all of the ones who have been working with the Transport Authority over the last year, we all got a call. We all got a call to say, hey, we know this is going to affect you. We have a meeting tomorrow, which we're all in attendance, and they gave us the directives as to what is going to be required for them to lift the ban and then say who has complied.
Wow. Okay. So you are in the know as to the process of regulation, because I remember when Uber launched in Jamaica a couple of years ago, we spoke about it extensively on this show, and there was no regulation. And even now, you hear the minister saying, okay, there's a ban, but on the other side, the argument is that there still is no adequate regulation. So how can you ban something when it is your fault as the government for not regulating in the first place?
Yeah, and so that was the group who came together to say we need a seat at the table. We went to we had discussion with the managing director. At the time, the minister was Audley Shaw, the Honorable Audley Shaw, and we put forward our the things that we thought were necessary in order to create a regulatory environment. Because the truth is, the Road Traffic Act, especially the new one, doesn't contemplate some things that are going to be necessary. One thing that is just glaringly obvious: if we are going to allow ride-hailing apps to operate, and the drivers who use those apps to respond to passenger requests, you're going to have a phone actively in use during a trip. Now, currently, that law is a very serious law, and you can be ticketed, and we all know what the ticketing can lead to. Now, something like that has to be changed in the Road Traffic Act, and other things included, like what type of red plate you have. Right now, there is you have route taxi, you have hackney carriage, and you have contract. And so if you don't want your vehicle, if you have a nice luxury vehicle and you don't want it to have that yellow and black checker all across it, there's only one type of license you can apply for, but it's very restrictive, and it does not contemplate smaller motor vehicles. In most cases, it's only allowed for large carriers like buses, because again, a lot of these things were written when they thought they knew what the service was and what it looked like, only what it could look like only. as a tourism service where you're chartering a bus, that cruise ship comes in, or an airport transfer, and it's just buses. Nobody contemplated a type of VIP licensing, which is really what was missing, which is what we're trying to offer. And we're trying to follow the existing regulation to the extent that we can, even though we're still doing something different.
So the brand spanking new Road Traffic Act is already, I wouldn't say obsolete or outdated, but already needs to be updated after taking so long to update.
Yeah, and you'd have noticed yesterday's protest by the the regular taxi operators. I think that
Right.
they have a very what they do and their actions, I can't, and I don't necessarily endorse or say anything was wrong with it, but definitely they have a point, because even as a civilian driver, you could easily get have one or two bad interactions with a police officer and immediately face the risk of losing your license. This is not a law that affects only taxi drivers. This affects you, it affects me, it affects everybody who is on the road. And so, they're saying, hey, who did you consult when you made these laws, and why aren't you listening to the outcome that is going to happen, which can have impact on people's livelihoods? When they can't drive, then they can't feed themselves, then there's less transportation services on the road, and then people can't get to work. You have all these subsequent things that happen from one decision, and you're not listening to us. So I believe that was the reason behind the protesting, and I think they actually got a listening ear. As far as I can see, there is still ongoing discussion that may cause some change. We don't know. But again, not every taxi driver is an unprofessional, uneducated person, as what others might stigmatize them as. You have very respectable, professional people who take their business very seriously, and they understand the things that affect their business. And so, we support every person that's in the public passenger space as who has a right to earn a living.
That's a fact. And I find that the more mature drivers, the more respectable drivers tend to be the hackney carriage drivers. They've been in the industry for a long time. They put their kids through school, through university, and they tend to be quite reliable. But David, you have put forward a proposal as to how the foreign companies, specifically Uber and InDrive. I didn't know InDrive was foreign, by the way. I thought it was Jamaican this whole time. But you
No,
put forward
they're from Russia or one of those European countries.
Russia.
Yeah, they're one of those. They're in like 200 countries.
Really?
And the
I had no
name
idea.
actually, every time someone new pops up, I do my research, right? So there have been a few in Jamaica who have come close to launch or actually launched and never stayed afloat. InDrive specifically stands that the original name was Independent Driver, from one of those European countries. Again, a small startup, and they took advantage of an inefficient transportation sector and grew out of that. But again, similar to Hugo, who came into Jamaica and spent a lot of money, to launch big. It was just a marketing campaign that was able to garner a lot of users and downloads. And that drove the demand, and that the demand therefore meant that riders could sign up and make money. This is the same thing that came in, and they just spent a bunch of money in the first year or first few months, got a lot of demand, and then signed up drivers. If you notice, you will still see InDrive, up to recently, you would still see some InDrive advertisement, but not as much as when they just came. So it's one of those.
I see them all the time whenever I'm playing games, their ad pops up like in game, and they have the billboards up as well. Okay. So they're still spending money here.
Yeah. But
I had no idea they were Russian.
Yeah, one of those European countries, maybe not directly Russia, but in that area.
That explains the ad spend, the marketing spend. But what I was saying, so you've put forward a proposal for how these foreign companies can potentially operate in Jamaica. What's your proposal, David?
So it's my proposal, and it's strictly my opinion, which I shared, through the means I could find to share it with the relevant people, is that the foreign entities who want to do business in Jamaica should be made to partner with a local entity that acts as a third party management service, right? So, for example, many smaller islands protect their industries by making foreign entities partner with a local company so that there's not only um, money that stays in the country, but also there's some learning and shared expertise that will translate throughout, other enterprise. And so similar to how airlines code share, right? So you have international airlines like American and United. You'll buy a ticket from one starting point to an ending point, but then you see that one of the legs of that trip is actually operated by another airline. And in most instances, that's the national carrier of the local of the destination, right? So you're going to pay United or American Airlines the total sum that's due for the airfare, but part of that trip is going to be affected on, another carrier, and that carrier earns income from the fare, but is the one providing that leg of the service. So we know that Uber is a global company. They are operating in all around the world. So they're going to bring foreign spenders to Jamaica who are going to stay on the Uber app because that's what they know, that's what they trust, and that's what they believe will give them the service that they expect. But it doesn't mean that when they land in Jamaica, the driver has to be some unregulated driver in an unregulated car, doing some random gig work. It can be that it's a professional service through a professional company that has met all of the requirements, not only of the local laws, but is trying to comply with Uber's standards of service delivery and all of the things that the client and the passenger is going to expect of the experience. So my proposal was that the Ubers and the Lyfts and the likes that want to come should be made to partner with a company like mine. Doesn't have to be me. I'm not saying it has to be me, but there are others like me who have the cars, the drivers, the training, the knowledge of compliance, the ability to track cars, the ability to track drivers, the ability to screen, the ability to respond to customer requests, and all of those things that even though you're using a phone, it doesn't mean that you have to eliminate all of the service elements that can make that experience safe, comfortable, and efficient.
Well, why do they really need you as the middleman, though, David, or somebody like you as the middleman when they can simply recruit drivers on their own and they have their own internal standards? Passengers can rate drivers, drivers can rate passengers, and so on and so forth.
So remember, there's a regulator that's involved. So either the regulator is going to open an office and a branch to specifically, which again, I'm speaking on my own behalf. I've not had any of this discussion with the Transport Authority. I try to share the opinion, but if you don't put a middleman, you're going to put the entire strain on the Transport Authority to handle the regulation. You're going to put the strain on the Transport Authority to deal with someone from there to say, hey, how many drivers you have? Are they all up to date with their badges? How many vehicles they have? Are they all up to date with the licensing? When you have a company that's already doing it all day, every day, because that's the nature of their business, that can be a middleman to say, well, these are, okay, for example, Juta, I'm just going to use an example. Juta is a membership. Juta is an organization that's made up of individual members. Some people have one vehicle, some people have multiple vehicles, but Juta as a body is the body that represents Juta to the Transport Authority and represents Juta to the hotel sector, the tourism sector, all those things. And so they serve a very similar purpose in the space. So it's not a new concept. This is a similar concept. You're just saying, well, we're in a new world now, new age, new industry. There's technology. There's things we don't understand. There's best world, first world practice. There's things that somebody else who is commercially driven to ensure that these things are followed will keep everyone up to speed, up to date, and in compliance.
Shell says that's not a bad idea. Some protection for the local industry. I have a couple of questions from our viewers as well. Deshaun wanted to know, why aren't the cars used in ride-sharing services? Why don't they have a red plate?
Okay, so again, even if I wanted to serve the entire country over, eventually, can't do it overnight, right? So there's an element of scaling the business that has to come into play. Now, what Uber did and what their business model was over in the US specifically, because the laws did not prevent it from happening, is that, okay, I need to satisfy all the trips that are being requested. I need to have at any given time a minimum of 50 drivers on the road in this particular area to make sure that, you know, a ride is never more than 5 minutes or 10 minutes away. That in America, it's okay because I can jump in my car and work for 3 or 4 hours and then move on, and then, you know, somebody else will take my place and I'll meet the demand that's required. When you translate that over to Jamaica now, it's the same requirement. There's a demand that needs to be met. There's passengers that are looking for a ride, but there's not enough regulated vehicles operating on the app. So in order to offset what is lacking on the regulated side, they say, okay, you, Mr. Civilian, with your vehicle that is costing you $80,000 a month in car payments, come and make $30,000 to $40,000 a month carrying passengers. The problem is our transport laws specifically prohibit that from happening. You can't use a privately registered motor vehicle to carry a passenger for a fare. You can carry a friend, can carry a family, as long as you're not charging them, that's fine. Somebody can, you know, a friend or family member can put some gas money in your pocket, but that's not the same as saying this trip from Sovereign to from Sovereign Ligani to Portmore is $2,000, and before you get in my car, you have to agree to pay me that. That is a fare-paying passenger, which is strictly prohibited in a private motor vehicle with a white plate. The only cars and drivers that should do that are regulated with the red plate because they're licensed and insured as such.
So then that comes back to the same question then. That means that the Uber drivers should technically have red plates.
They should all have it. My understanding is that there are some drivers and own vehicle operators who have, whether before or subsequent to being on Uber, gotten the relevant red plate, as we call it. But we know that that's not the majority. It's probably the minority. So this move by the minister to shut everybody down, to then come back and say, hey, you need to disclose every vehicle that you're using on your platform, and if they're not regulated, you simply can't use them. So when the ban is lifted and everybody comes back to market, we're all supposed to be only operating with the vehicles that have been legally authorized to do so.
Okay, so that's part of what they want to address during this restricted period.
So one thing I'd say, this is not the incident that recently happened with the teacher, the unfortunate incident. It wasn't the first, and it happened before with one of the drivers being kidnapped. Now,
it happens with regular taxi as well. It's a notorious industry, unfortunately.
Exactly, but so why technology should be embraced is because we are providing them a way for you to be able to not guarantee safety, but prevent, or as much as you can, prevent those things from going unnoticed. And the hope is that you would avoid an outcome like what happened before, right? But with the technology, you can promote a safe transportation sector. So the problem is the needs of the transportation sector are more than what the technology providers can handle on their own right now. But if you start here with an entry point where somebody like me can get a green light to proceed, continue making investments. If I'm allowed to operate in a regulated environment and I'm showing that we're, even at the small scale that we're operating, we're serving a needed market, and we're showing viability, it will allow us to scale, and eventually we will move, just like Uber did, move away from the premium service only to going into the category for the everyday individual, to no longer have to flag down a taxi at Sovereign and wonder if the driver is anybody that they have to worry about, because everything would be registered. There will be no hiding. There would be a system by which the drivers would be vetted, and if they went off track, you could immediately shut them down.
Absolutely. I've always thought that these types of apps make transportation safer, and I like the technology being used. Now, before you go, David, you mentioned earlier, we kind of skated over it, your rollout into the Bahamas. Tell us about that.
Yes, so I'm proud to announce that Dryva, we signed a partnership with an entity in the Bahamas who is involved in other business, and they came to Jamaica and saw what we were building, and decided that it was definitely something they wanted to be a part of. So that partnership, actually, you like to hear this too, Kalila. It includes the Bahamas, Cayman Islands, Turks and Caicos, and your home Belize. So we have a rollout plan for the Dryva app to start in Nassau, Bahamas, and over the next 6 to 24 months be available in those markets. So we really want to be your homegrown Caribbean-based transportation provider, where we understand our clients, we understand the market, we understand what's needed, we understand what's missing, and we're building something to suit our own people. I'm not taking anything away from Uber. I've used it before, overseas. It's a good model, and quite frankly, it showed us what's possible. But like anything else, if there was a time when no bank was a Jamaican bank. Now we have NCB being the largest bank in the Caribbean. And so Dryva has, the ability to start small in Jamaica and grow across the Caribbean and replace the larger companies that, that exist today.
Well, breaking money news, guys. You've heard Dryva's Caribbean rollout plan. But David, I can't let you go without asking a question that we ask every entrepreneur on this show. I'm shocked nobody has asked it in the comments just yet. But do you ever plan to list? Any plans for an IPO?
So it has always been my goal to list a company on the Jamaica Stock Exchange. I have been a part of other ventures before where I thought that was possible, but hands down, I believe this is the one. So I've been putting everything, all my energies. I'm fully invested, like all in, and hopefully, in the not too distant future, we'll be on this platform again talking about our IPO.
Awesome. Looking forward to it, David. How can people reach Dryva? How can they use your service right now?
So we have, I still like to promote our business of the delivery business, which is Dryva.online, Dryva.online. We really believe we're offering something unique, where within an hour to 2 hours of you making a booking, we'll go and pick something up. And it's not, you don't know you need us until you know you need us. Some person who used us before left their house keys in their kids' school bag, and we had to go to the school, pick up the house key and take it to them. And we did that in less than an hour. So, things like that come up and you don't know who to call. And rather than you jumping back in your car, or if you don't drive, trying to take the public bus to go and get a house key, that's something that you can use us for. So that's www.dryva.online. Now, Dryva.app, that's .app, is where you can go to download the Dryva app. Again, full disclosure, we have not fully built out what we need for Jamaica, but we are operational, or we were operational until the minister told us to pause. We are patiently waiting on his decision as to if and when the ban can be lifted. And then, we hope that this kind of, PR would allow us to get more traction, and get users who want to support a local homegrown business, one that wants to do it right. And that would lead to, again, more growth for not only our business, but for all of the players in the industry. I want to call them out again. 876 On The Go is like, a company I respect a lot, because they started very, very small, and they're really growing. And I would encourage you guys to use that service when we're allowed to go that way, over the foreign apps, because again, there's nobody locally in Jamaica controlling those foreign things. Yes, you have some Latin American market manager, but they're not on the streets. They don't know what's happening there.
Philip says, Philip is in Turks and Caicos, by the way. He says, Turks and Caicos, good luck. Legal taxi driving business here is protected by the Almighty himself. Otherwise, it's unregulated taxis for the regular people. So how much research have you done on those other markets so far?
I will fully say that my business partner, who is the one launching in those markets, is more has more in-depth market knowledge of those two places. And so we don't think it's an easy road. Even in anywhere you go, you're gonna have some protection that is in place for what exists already. In fact, I wish we had the protection here, because that would have prevented Uber and InDrive from coming and scaling so fast. But we're not opposed to going in the right way. And it may not take 6 months, it may take a year or two, but it's fine. We'll just keep trotting until we make some traction. As I said, my app has been ready for a year, and I just have been patiently waiting for the right moment, which I believe is now.
Last question comes from Deshaun, who wants to know if Dryva is available island-wide.
So again, we've had conversation. We don't have the scale to serve island-wide clientele. If you're in Kingston and you want to book us to take you outside of Kingston, yes, we can do that. But we don't have drivers based outside of Kingston at the moment. However, I have been very carefully scouting for what I would call regional partners, that after I have launched and proven the business model and shown that prospective person that our business and our technology works well, I have no doubt that we would be able to partner up with people who would operate under the Dryva banner, but serve their own local market well.
All right. Thank you so much, David. Appreciate it, especially at the last minute.
Yeah, thank you too, Kalila. Thank you to the viewers for listening, and we look forward to fixing this issue and growing a business that Jamaicans can be proud of.